Hi everyone. Today's subject is something that's very close to my heart, and there's no way I can discuss it without discussing my personal history with you guys first. So, about, I would say 7 or 8 years ago, I stopped taking antidepressants, and any psych meds that I was taking, I stopped. I had my reasons, and I think they were good reasons. But before I go into it, let me first set out a little bit of a disclaimer here. I am in no way encouraging people to stop taking their psych meds. If you are taking antidepressants or anti-anxiety pills or anti-psychotic pills or really anything to help you cope psychologically and it works for you, then by all means carry on. I'm not gonna all of a sudden tell you to stop. And I'm not a medical doctor. I only speak from experience. And I do feel like what I'm about to say will definitely help a lot of people. So it was the year of my 17th birthday. I was 16 going on 17. And my mother had just been diagnosed with bladder cancer. So I was going through a tough time. I mean, my mother was going for chemotherapy sessions and nothing was working, and her health was just deteriorating daily. And I wasn't coping. I mean, I couldn't stand seeing this woman in so much pain and distress. So my mental health obviously started suffering. It went downhill really quickly. But I couldn't pinpoint exactly what was wrong. I just suddenly felt a change in me. Like, things I used to enjoy, I suddenly wasn't enjoying anymore. Things that made me happy weren't making me happy anymore. I just felt this heaviness on my shoulders. And I didn't recognize it as depression at the time until I went to a psychologist for consultation. And she was the mother of one of my school friends. So obviously she made me do all sorts of tests and personality tests and assessments. And she then said, listen, you are majorly depressed. I don't know if you're aware of it, but you are suffering from depression and anxiety. And she said, we need to treat it. So she wrote a prescription for an antidepressant as well as an antipsychotic. Now let me tell you, the antipsychotic medication was because I was genuinely losing touch with reality. I started hearing voices. I started becoming paranoid about everyone, suspecting everyone of talking behind my back, almost like a form of paranoid schizophrenia, but not that hectic. Okay, I wasn't ever schizophrenic. It's just that I can now recognize the signs in me that were in me at the time. So I had these two types of medication, and if you know a little bit about psych meds, you'll know that you have to start gradually and then up the dosage. Okay, you can't just take the maximum dosage on day one, right? So if it's like 20 milligram, you start with like 5 milligram, okay, and then 10 and then 15. Sorry, can't do maths. And then you gradually up the dosage, okay, until it's where it needs to be. So I started taking these tablets, and I can tell you right now that they did not make any difference whatsoever. Okay, I did not feel less depressed. I didn't feel happier. I didn't feel better. All I do know is that I gained a hell of a lot of weight. Like, I went from size 30 to size 36, which is like 2 dress sizes, almost 3. Now that's a lot. I mean, it's shocking. And apart from that, it's just the side effects. The other side effects were so horrible. It was these constant headaches. I was constantly thirsty. I was just tired all the time. I mean, by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I couldn't keep my eyes open anymore. Not at all. And then, of course, the weight gain was so depressing as well, because, people make fun of you, because we live in a culture where skinnier is the new normal and all the rest, and body shaming is is the in thing. So for me, being in my last year of high school and dealing with weight gain and skin breakouts and funny things caused by that medication, that was not great. I didn't enjoy it one little bit. Okay, and let me mention to you guys that if you read the leaflet that is inside a box of those psych meds, you will find among others that the side effects not only include the ones I just mentioned, but the shocking thing is that one of the side effects listed there is depression. So why on earth would you want to take a tablet for depression and get more depressed? Okay, and they clearly warn you on the label, on that leaflet, they clearly warn you that it could increase suicidal thoughts, right? And I can tell you that about 3 weeks ago, I lost a friend of mine to suicide, and she had been on more than one type of medication for depression. She was in and out of psychiatric hospitals, she was institutionalized for days, weeks at a time, and still, she took her own life. Okay? So all I'm trying to say is, I want you to see it from a perspective of side effects. Okay? And think, is it worth it putting this into my body? Is there not maybe an alternative? Something that won't make me feel so deathly ill? I mean, my journey with the meds didn't stop there. Okay? I eventually weaned myself off those 2 types of meds because of the side effects I was experiencing. But I wasn't getting any better. So my psychologist referred me to a psychiatrist. Oh, and they love prescribing medication. That's what they do for a living. Okay? So he diagnosed me with temporal lobe epilepsy, which is a form of epilepsy where you don't convulse or fall down or you don't really show any visible signs of having a seizure, but you do experience depression, deja vu, moments where you just feel out of it, you feel out of touch with reality. So he then told me about this medication for seizures, and I asked him what are the side effects, because I told him I had bad experiences with medication. And he was quite upfront with me. He said, you know what, you might experience hair loss and this and that and the other. I said, whoa. I do not want to experience hair loss. I mean, my mother is dying of cancer and she's lost all her hair. I mean, don't you think that would be traumatic? Really? So I just left there without even giving it a second thought. But again, I wasn't getting better. So the following year, I went back to that same psychiatrist and said, you know what, let me have that EEG test done and just let's see if the seizures show up. Now, the result came back that they did detect seizure activity in my brain, which is linked to temporal lobe epilepsy. This is a long story, but bear with me. So I then started taking the anticonvulsant tablets, which had all their side effects, and these tablets were much, much worse than any antidepressants. I mean, my mouth was constantly dry. I had the worst headache that you could ever imagine. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't focus because I just had this back pain. I had random body aches. Again, I couldn't keep my eyes open during varsity lectures in the middle of the afternoon. It was just a constant struggle, all right? So long story short, I eventually just said, I can't do this anymore. This is making me sick, right? So I weaned myself off of that medication, of course, with the help of my general practitioner. And, obviously, I still had my episodes. So I found out from my GP, are there any alternatives? Are there any other brands that I could try? He said, you know what, they're all more or less the same. It's either you take it or you don't. So I just felt like completely lost. I felt like I wasn't sure what I was going to do. But I needed clarity, all right? So I went back for another EEG when I was off the medication. And it showed up again that my seizure activity had returned. I forgot to mention that while I was on the medication, I went for an EEG and the seizures didn't show up. So obviously the medication was working, but at what cost? All right, I was really suffering. So what I want to say to you guys is that there are alternatives out there, and depression is not something that will just go away by itself miraculously. One day you're depressed, the next day you're not. It doesn't work like that, okay? But it's something that you need to manage. And I'm telling you that you do not need to manage it with something that makes you feel ill. Alright? I am currently just managing it with zinc, magnesium supplements, and then herbs like Valerian, St. John's Wort, and Alfalfa have been very helpful to me. So I will make a list of all the herbal alternative treatments to depression and anxiety. I'll put it in the description. But I want everyone to make informed choices, and please, I'm not a GP, I'm not a medical doctor. I can't tell someone not to take something that they've been taking for years.